So you have a website, but are you generating income or donations from your website? That is what we're talking about today. Hey there, my name is Sammy, and I am your host of the Digital Marketing Therapy Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. And today I am joined by Michael Buzinski, and we are talking all about your website and how to really maximize it and take advantage of it, and using his rule of 26 to double the income that you generate from your website. Now, this could be from ticket sales, this could be from donations, this could be from enrollments into your program, all of the things. And we have a great conversation about ways to monetize your website that anyone can do, no matter the size of your organization. So Michael Buzinski is the president and CMO of Buzzworthy Website Marketing and is a lifelong entrepreneur, digital marketing thought leader, and best-selling author dubbed a visionary marketer by the American Marketing Association. Michael's sole mission is to help entrepreneurs avoid the time drain and frustration of managing profitable digital marketing campaigns. Buzz, as most call him, has simplified digital marketing success with the rule of 26 and is on a mission to double the website revenue of service-centric businesses across America. So much fun with this conversation. I think you're going to get a lot of things from this. You may need to come back to this episode a couple different times, just depending on where you're at with your website and what you're working on. But I definitely recommend grabbing his book and just picking out one or two nuggets from this episode that you're going to implement on, and let me know which one that is. But before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by our Patreon account. So I really hope that you'll become a patron for just as little as $5 a month. And what this is a way for you to take our episodes and take action on them, implement more, get more done. We offer digital workbooks for all of the episodes. We have AMA sessions. We have all sorts of perks for becoming a patron. And there is some good stuff coming in 2022. I can't let you know just yet, but it's coming. So I hope you'll join us and become a patron. But for now, let's get into the episode. You're listening to the Digital Marketing Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Sammy Vidal-Mulhern, and each week I bring you tips from myself and other experts, as well as hot seats with small business owners and entrepreneurs to demystify digital marketing and get you on your way to generating more leads and growing your business. Hey, Buzz, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode.
Thanks for having me, Sammy.
Yeah, so we are jumping into a website conversation, but more specifically, monetization, because we all want to make more money off our websites, right? We spend money on it. It's probably one of the bigger investments you made. So let's make some money off of it.
Right, exactly. I think that a lot of times when we talk with like nonprofit organizations, that we forget the monetization. We see the donate button and we make it a pretty color and we make sure it's on top and it stays on top and all that good stuff. But then we forget the conversation it takes that needs to happen in order for somebody to push that button. And that is, in the nonprofit world, the monetization, right?
Yeah.
Some people will look at it in other ways of saying, well, we want people to volunteer. Like they have them enough money. It's like, okay, still monetizing because time is money.
Time is money. And why do you think, I think a lot of smaller organizations feel like, well, we're either not getting enough traffic or there's not enough people that are seeing our stuff, so we don't need to worry about it. And they don't focus on that as kind of a priority for your website. And why do you think that is? And how can maybe people reframe their mindset to kind of set that as their main focus for what they're talking about?
So websites are much like brick and mortar. You build it, they don't necessarily come. Right. And there are billions of websites out there and thousands of them offering the same services that many of the nonprofits that you work with have, right? And so you're competing for people's philanthropy. And if you don't compete like you would in any commercial setting, you're going to lose. And if you're not getting enough traffic, that means that every single visitor is even more important, and you need to get that high conversion rate in there. And when we are looking at, like, I work with a lot of nonprofits over the years, and I tell you right now, the biggest thing is funding, right? And people are like, well, where are we going to get more money? And they're always looking at grants and all these long-term things. And that's great and everything. But when we're engaging our community and we're pushing our website every time we're out there serving the community that, we're trying to get the funds from, right? That's where the best money comes from, is that local community. So if we're not, one, optimizing our website so that people understand where their money is going to go from, who is it going to serve, how is it going to make them feel better, right?
Yep.
We donate selfishly.
Yes.
Right?
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. Yes.
And so if you're not telling the donor, the potential donor, what's in it for them, you're losing. You're losing a lot more donations than you know.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And we were talking about this right before we jumped on, just about how that customer experience for that donor is just as important as that customer experience is for somebody who's buying shoes or a new winter coat.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There's two stories told in every nonprofit organization, much like in for-profit organizations. There is the mission of the people we're serving, and then the story of how you, the visitor, fits into that mission.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that story branding on your website immediately, homepage, it's about like, are you looking to help these people? Well, we are too. Let's get together, right? Yeah. Just like on your websites, probably, are you a nonprofit looking to get better donorship through your website, right? We should talk, right? But if you don't talk about their pain in that they're not getting enough donors, or they're not getting enough volunteers, or whatever they're looking to get out of their website as a conversion, then you're losing those clients. And same as with the nonprofits. If you're not saying, hey, listen, isn't it horrible that XYZ happens? So many kids go hungry, or whatever the mission is, right? You're pulling at that heartstring that they already have. So you're doing this confirmation bias in there. And then you're showing how your mission satisfies that pain, and then give them all the options, or I say all of the options, give them one or two options on how to engage immedially.
Make it easy. I love that you're talking about the simplification of it, because I think we tend to overcomplicate all the words and all of the things. And it's like, just lay it out. We have 3 or 5 seconds to capture people's attention. So make it really easy. And I think that's something that you applied in your book that you created, right? The rule of 26, and how to get people to raise or to earn more money from their websites. But you broke it down and really simplified kind of what that process is. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. So the rule of 26, for those who haven't gotten the book, you can go to the rule of 26, the number 6.com, and get your copy. We break down the 3 objectives it's going to take to increase your revenue or donations from your website. Excuse me. And the three things that have to happen is you need to increase your traffic by 26%. Then you increase your conversion rate, so the amount of people who are actually converting or donating, by 26%. And then you're increasing the value per donor by 26%, right? So in the book, we talk it for profit. So it sounds like in 2022, I will have to release the non-for-profit. Yeah. Maybe you can help me out with that, Sammy.
There you go.
We'll co-author the next version of this.
Oh my goodness.
All right. But all of the mechanics are the same, though, right? When we're looking to increase the traffic, we want to make sure we're getting the right traffic, right? We don't want to market to everyone, because not everyone is going to be a good donor. And regardless of how much somebody donates, it's the same amount of customer service per donation.
Oh my gosh. Will you say that again, please?
Doesn't matter how much somebody donates. There's still the same amount of customer service per donation.
That just made my heart warm, because I agree with that 100%. Because you never know the long-term value of what that person is donating. They might just be testing out who you are, how you're going to treat them, and seeing what happens.
But if you are looking for $5 donations, right? And that's where your customer services ends, is like, hey, we're going to give you $5 worth of customer service, versus $1 million donors. That customer's journey is much different, and you have to be able to gate those, right? It's okay to get $5. I'm not saying it's bad, but if you're focused and your whole customer journey is wrapped around somebody giving you $5 at the end of that journey, I mean, geez, that's a lot of work for $5.
Yep.
Versus somebody says, well, I'll give you 25 today, and I might give you 100 tomorrow. I might give you 1,000 in 5 years, and I might leave you an endowment at the end. Right. Yeah. And when we look at the lifetime, depending on what your organization is, some organizations are cyclical, meaning that they lose their donors because of age. So one of the nonprofits I worked for about 7 years on the board of directors was the Alaska Junior Theater. And it was professional theater for youth, right? And so the people who donated to it were parents of children or grandparents of children in the age bracket in which that theater was made for. So once the kids got into high school, they usually died off. The donations died off. Very rarely did you see an endowment that came from or came to that organization. Versus when I sat on the Aviation Museum's board of directors, we specifically looked at endowments because the old money was the big money, right? And the people who built, and there's Alaska Aviation Museum. I lived in Alaska for 18 years. So a lot of Alaska stuff. But in Alaska, the aviation is what built that state. And so a lot of the original old money is only about a generation to 2 generations removed from its original foundations. And so we're celebrating the history of that whole entire state's existence through aviation. You're going to get some people with a lot of money in aviation, and they're going to, and if you embrace them and their legacy, they're going to give you some of what they have to leave behind to the organization so that that story can continue after them.
So what I'm hearing, which I love, is the website can pull people in, it can connect people. The purpose of your website might be those smaller donations, but if you can really go after what it is that is your long-term strategy, then what you do after they hit your website and make that initial donation is the more critical piece. But if you don't pull them in, then you've lost anyway.
You're going to lose in the long run.
Yeah.
Even if you get the $5 today and don't follow through with your appreciation, right? And we can go broke collecting $5 at a time.
Right.
Right. And so asking for what you actually need versus what you'll accept, I think, is where you need to really focus your energy. Right. Yeah. And then when it comes down to it, when there's options at the end, when they start checking out, you're going to want to try to upsell them. Hey, I know you're about to give us $10, but if you give us 20, we'll give you a free mug or whatever, whatever that looks like. Yeah. Right. You're incentivizing that donorship. Now, are you spending $10 on the extra $10? Yes, but you have now set the precedence that they're willing to give you 20.
Right. Well, you see a lot of this with like St. Jude and ASPCA, where like they run these ads that are all like, hey, your $20 donation gets you a t-shirt and a backpack, and like that. Yeah.
Do the heart walk and get a t-shirt and spend $35. All right. The t-shirt costs them 10, they get $25. And now you're wearing the Heart Walk, the Heart Association's t-shirt all over because you were in the Heart Walk and all that good stuff. All the sponsors are on the back. So you now helped those people right there become sponsors again, because if they see their t-shirt out in public, they're like, hey, my advertising's actually working.
Yep. Well, and you're building that community and that connectedness of these people treated me really well. Right. So when I go to do my giving, I'm going to think about like, they're going to still be top of mind. And to your point, the customer service is, I might be like, oh, hey, like I got an extra bonus. I'm going to give half of that to charity. Who do I want to give it to? If you've been the organization that's continuing to follow up with me, you're going to be top of mind and more likely to give that repeat current donation.
Right. And your website can be a hub of that communication. So a lot of times people or organizations I see they'll flow them from their website into their email.
Yes.
But then they never loop it back from email back to their website. Hey, we're doing XYZ. Get more information on our website. We're doing this. More web for back. Everything goes back to the website. One, increased traffic, better SEO. And then they're going to see other things in the peripheral as they're looking at the thing you just pointed them to.
Right.
And so now you're looking busier than you are.
How much content then do you think? I know this is a completely loaded question because I know it varies, and I If you asked me this question, I would not be happy. But, in general, for organizations, like how often do you think it's important for them to be creating new content on their website or to be updating and making sure like your headers are relevant to what's most important? Like how much time and effort should these organizations be spending on their website?
A lot. I don't care where you're at. A lot. Like your website should be touched every month.
Yeah.
You should be having something going on every single month for your nonprofit organization. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
If you're a church, there's something happening every week, multiple times a week, right? So it needs to go onto the website. Website. Everything goes to the website. It is the hub. It is like the store, right? You want things to happen for your business, you send them to a store if you're a retailer. On the website, it's the same thing. It's just like the brick and mortar. The more people come to it, the more often they will visit.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you tell them to come, the more times they will come. If you never point at it, they're like, I don't have to go there. Because there's obviously nothing important there because you keep telling me there's nothing important there.
Yep. Well, and I feel like it's also kind of a situation of, well, I might not be ready to give right now, but I'm getting regular information and I'm still staying in touch and still feeling connected. There's nothing worse than getting that email from any business. And then you want to find more information. They don't drive you to the website, but you still are like, well, I don't really know if I'm ready for this. You go to the website and you're like, I can't find anything. And then all of a sudden now you're like, well, I don't trust them because they're obviously not paying attention. They're not syncing up all their marketing efforts. And you're like, I'm done. I'm going to go find this somewhere else. Because to your point at the beginning, you said there's how many organizations that are doing the same thing you're doing. You have to do it better.
Right. And it's not as much as that they're making that assessment, is that you're not making them make that assessment. Right. Top of mind awareness. If you're not top of mind when they are ready, you're going to lose because to whomever is at the top of their mind. Right. So, all right. You got an email, a drip campaign for somebody who has signed up for the newsletter, but hasn't donated and hasn't volunteered. Right. Now we're going to flip flop volunteerism and donations back and forth and give them opportunities to engage in each of those every time we talk to them until they do. Wow. I don't know what that was. That was a big boom. I have no idea what that was.
House is haunted.
Yeah, right. At first I was like, I'm back on the West Coast and I was an earthquake. But anyway, so when we're looking at that customer journey and we're pointing them back, we have to be very conscious of how we're sending them back and what we're sending them back for. Once they become a donor, then you're starting to work your donor frequency and then bringing the value ladder up, trying to get them to see more value so they'll donate more to the cause, right? If they volunteer, are they willing to volunteer and give a little bit of money? So your email marketing and your website have to be lock in step with each other to show all of those opportunities when it's relevant to them.
Yeah. So what would you say to, let's just take a museum, for example, because a lot of museums are nonprofits.
Right.
So they're trying to drive foot traffic to their location. They're trying to talk to donors, and they're also probably trying to just educate people on whatever the topic is that their museum supports. So how, instead of getting overwhelmed, do you have any ways for people to kind of figure out how to prioritize or how often to send those messages, and kind of how to lay that out on the website so they don't overwhelm people?
Yes. That's many layers to that question. Let's start with segmentation. Give people opportunity to choose what type of information you want them to get, and then how often do you want to get them. So if you have a weekly newsletter that then gets summarized once a month, hey, would you like our weekly newsletter? Would you like our once a month newsletter? Right? Okay, boom. Right? Did you want to hear about events at the museum? Did you want to hear about speaking engagements at the museum? Or did you want to hear about volunteer opportunities at the museum? Now I'm identifying, am I a customer?
Yep.
Or am I a volunteer? Or am I a donator? Right? And when you're on the website for a museum specifically, you have to think of a museum as a retail organization. Okay. Nothing is worse than having a museum that never has anybody go to it.
No,
They're going to go broke, right?
No.
Right. So your first priority is to get people through the door. While you're at the museum, you're going to have plenty of opportunities for your docents and anybody else that they interact with within the museum to get you other information about being more involved with that museum. Okay. Now, do you have the every once in a while have little call to actions of like become involved in the curation of, or the ... I mean, there's many things within a museum that you need people for, right? So you have the money, you have the docents, you have the seminars that usually have to happen. You have the people who need to volunteer for events, fundraising, the foundation. There's all of these things, right? So really, you want to give that its own section within the website, give it a prominent navigation button that says, hey, listen, get more involved with the museum. Mm-hmm. Then they click on that. It's almost like a whole new website with its own homepage of like, how would you like to get involved? I would like to help with the foundation. I would like to help as a volunteer. I would like to help by giving you my money.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's almost like what you said, with like niching down and really understanding what you're looking for. So instead of feeling like you need to barf everything out on your homepage, being really intentional with what your sales funnel is, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. so that you can hit people with the right message at the right time. And it sounds overcomplicated, but I think what you just said is a perfect way to think about it. Get them to buy the ticket to come to the museum, because that's the most important thing. And then make sure that everything else is trained perfectly to pull them all the way through, right? And then follow up with the email. So I think if you can break it down to that simple funnel, then it will make it easier for you to monetize and get your website to generate the funds you need. Mm-hmm. And I think the other piece too, and I'd be curious your thoughts on this, is, the website doesn't need to serve everyone. It just needs to serve your biggest need for your business.
I think that you can serve everyone from the website. You're not serving everyone from the homepage of your website, right? You have a footer that has an entire site map. You have a navigation that can take you to different places, right? So I feel that your value ladder versus your sales funnel, right? Sales funnel is going to get you down to a conversion. What type of conversion will be depending on what funnel you're at. But then once you have a conversion, now you're creating a value ladder, right? So if I started with time, now I'm going to ask for money. Or maybe I started with a ticket, because people with museums specifically, the experience is what inspires them to get involved.
Yeah.
The experience is what inspires them to donate. Their experience is what inspires them to advocate. And those three things are the foundation of any successful museum.
Well, and maybe even any organization, because if somebody comes to my run walk and they have an amazing experience, and they're going to mm-hmm. hopefully invite 3 more friends next year, right? Who then might mm-hmm. invite 3 more friends next year, right? If you mm-hmm. can get them to advocate and build that camaraderie and that teamwork, I think that's really important.
Advocacy is going to happen from their experience, for sure.
From a good experience. And likewise, if you don't give them a good experience and somebody comes up to them and is like, hey, I know you gave to organization, whatever, I was thinking of giving to them. What do you think? Like, that can be just as...
And then all of a sudden you're like, they're kind of a mess over there. Like I gave them like $1,000 and I didn't even get a call. And people do expect it. Like, they won't tell you that they expect it, but they expect it.
They expect it. So if I'm an organization that's like, okay, I haven't done any of the 3 things that you're talking about. I have no idea how to tackle a 26% growth in any of those areas. Is there one spot that you recommend starting with?
Start with your story, right? Get into your website. And so conversions probably are the most important, right? I can give you all the traffic and I can give you all the value. But if nobody's buying in, it really doesn't matter, right? So it's one of the harder ones too, because you have to test a lot, right? So it's like you set up that story brand for your organization, and then you test it with the traffic. Then you tweak your conversions. and then you put more traffic to it and you tweak the conversions and you continue to do that till you start getting better. Then you see what's the value that I'm getting from each of those interactions. How do I increase the quantity of value? So more time or more money that I'm getting from each of those, right? That engage. How do I get more from that? Right. And that a lot of times the third piece of the rule of 26, which is increase the average value per client or per donor, is by the experience after they get engaged from the website.
Right. So not necessarily increasing the initial donation, but increasing the lifetime value of that customer or donor.
Yeah, we're looking for lifetime value, right? Very few people are going to walk up to your website or go to your website and say, oh yeah, here's 10 grand. Yeah. Looks good. I got that in my pocket. It's all good. I didn't need it. I don't know if you're going to do anything good with it, but yeah, your website looks good. So here's 10 grand.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think what nonprofits have in their back pocket that they don't take advantage of is the Google Ad Grant, which is $10,000 a month that they can spend for free on ads. Yes. And so to do what you're saying, that testing piece is so much easier because you can drive much more traffic for free to your website than any other business can do without also trying to grow that organic growth.
Yes. We have seen when we work with nonprofits through the Google Grant program, I mean, it is night and day. People do not realize how much $10,000 is in ads a month. They're like, oh, is that for the year? No, that's a month, $120,000 in the year. And they're like, okay, well, that's enough money. I don't even have to optimize it. And I'm like, no, you have to optimize it still. Right. You still need to use it like it's real money.
Right.
Because if they see you wasting it, it's not going to, your ads are not going to show up. Right. So you can't spend the money if the ads don't show up. It's still in that same piece. So I think that it's a great way to be able to do a lot of CRO conversion optimization using basically free money.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think the tools that you can use to make sure things are working are also free. So just something as simple as checking in your Google Analytics on a regular basis and monitoring where your traffic is coming from and what pages are most impactful, right? And paying attention to some of those things. Like the investment that you're speaking of is really not that much in order to make a big impact on your website and your business. It's just more about intentionality and, and prioritization.
Well, in the book, like you pointed out, and I line out a lot of ways to do it yourself. And one of the tools that I line out is Hotjar for conversions, right? And Hotjar is great because it shows you literally how people are working through your website on a page by page basis. And the introductory is free for as long as you want. It's up to a certain amount, that you get with it, but it's usually for most small organizations, it's enough.
Well, I love the visualization of, I'm not a numbers person, so it's really hard for me to take all the numbers and process them in my brain, but the heat map on Hotjar is great too, because you can literally see this is where people are, like visually, this is where people are clicking.
Or not.
Or not.
Like you have a whole cold page, like, oh, nope, they're gone.
Or like my favorite is,
wow, we missed this one.
Yeah. My favorite is when we see people clicking on something like a lot, but it's not an actual button. It doesn't go anywhere. And you're like, this is a complete missed opportunity because people clearly want this, like make this.
And what are they clicking on? Like, like what is it? So we can replicate it elsewhere in context on the website. Yeah. Like this is working here. It will work other places. Right. So yes, put a button there. And why are they clicking there? What's the context in which they're trying to get? What are they trying to get to? And let's make that target easier to find elsewhere in the website.
Yeah, no, that's so good. I know you mentioned people need to spend a lot of time on their website, but before they are mad at you and mad at me, we don't know how to do this or what to do. Right. I know I recommend, and I think you probably would too, just setting time aside on a monthly basis to just go in and just review things, take a look at things, take a look at the data, whatever, and maybe make some edits, updates. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. So do you have some ways to kind of think about a process for how to go in and review what's working and what's not and fit that in if you're in a smaller team?
If you're in a smaller team, you're definitely going to have to take a look at your bandwidth, right? But if you're in a volunteer organization, you can find a volunteer to do it too. Right. And finding younger volunteers who have a little bit more time than money will give you more opportunities to leverage time, because it does take time. Right. But when it comes to the content, you're going to need somebody who is very good at writing. Right. You can't just put crap out, crap in, crap out. Right. You're not going to get anywhere with that.
Quality versus quantity for sure.
Right. Quality. Right. And so you might be, as say the ED of your organization, the only one that can actually write, and you don't have the money to pay somebody else to do it. Okay, great. That means you're going to have to wedge out that time. And if you only have time twice a month to write a blog of about 750 to 1,500 words, then you do 2 blogs a month. Mm-hmm. Just do what you can. Start there.
Yeah.
Right. Then find ways to get micro content. So reviews on events, feedback from the experience at your organization, testimonials for the services that you provide. All of this is content.
Yeah.
Find ways to incorporate that into the story, because everybody's input is really a testimonial to the work you're doing on a daily basis.
Yeah. And then, so that leads me to one thing I want to make sure we touch on is that you talked a lot about driving everything to the website. The website's your hub. That's where everything lives. But could you also talk a little bit about the power and importance of also driving traffic within your website? So people land on that blog that you wrote,
right?
There's nowhere for them to go. They're like, oh, this was great. And then
nothing. So there's two things in a blog that you're looking for. One are hyperlinks to subjects that you mention, but don't want to take time to dive into at that moment, right? So you might mention a program. So-and-so is with this program, and you just keep going into what you were talking about. There's a hyperlink to that program that goes to that program's page in your website. So there's a hyperlink there. So that's an internal link, right? At the end, you need call to actions.
What?
Right? Hey, did you like this content? Sign up for the newsletter, because maybe they got to the blog by accident, or maybe you did an ad. There's all sorts of ways you can get people to a blog, right? Maybe they got it through a search. So maybe it's their first time to your website, but the blog is the first page they landed on. Assume nobody knows anything about you on your blog. So at the bottom, it's your shameless plugs, right? To donate here, learn how donations help our blah, 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 blah. Learn how you can be a volunteer. Learn how you can do it. And have the 2 to 3 call to actions that you are very common for your organization, the most common, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Don't be asking, hey, do you want to be a board member? Do you want to do this?
Right.
Do you want to do an endowment? You want to do all like, no, just the simple, the first step, right? Yep. So sign up for the newsletter, stay in touch with what we've got going on, blah, blah, blah. Find value in your newsletter that it does not exist on your website, so that they go, okay, I know I'm always coming to the website. I'm going to go to the blog. I can do an RSS feed to the blog, and I never have to see the newsletter, or there's information on the newsletter that's nowhere else. And now you're creating the ecosystem that they're seeing all of it, and they're going to all of it, and they're consuming, because the more they consume, the more advocacy you're going to be able to get from them.
More advocacy, the more time on site, the better SEO, everything
gets fed.
Yeah. I like that you said, assume that people have never heard of you when they land on that page. Cause I think
on the blog, especially a blog page,
critical. We want, there's nothing worse than like you show up to some business or some networking event or something, and people are already speaking in this lingo and this language. And you're like, I don't really know what's going on, but I don't want to ask. And I'm just going to kind of like assume whatever, you don't want to make people feel stupid, especially in some of the types of services that are being provided that are much more sensitive or have a lot more nuance.
That's where, right. You could use your hyperlinks in content to explain those types of things, right? You could even have a modal or a pop-up. We like to use modals versus pop-ups, but a modal that pops up to kind of give a synopsis of something that is lingo.
Right.
Right. So instead of getting them out, they just hover over it in a little pop-up. This is this. It's like maybe 50 words. Learn more. Oh, I want to learn more. That pops up into a new tab, and they can go down that rabbit hole. Right. Yeah. But if it's but if they already know, they just keep reading.
Yep.
So experience. So you can manage that experience without having to dumb it so far down that the people are saying, man, I hate, they could say all this in 200 words. If they just wouldn't keep explaining the catechism of my Catholic Church to me every time I read something in the newsletter.
Right. No, 100%. I mean, that's, I think everybody flips out when Google does an algorithm change, but really at the root of all of it, it's how are you treating your visitors and are you giving them the customer experience that they want? And if you're thinking customer first, then you're going to win every time.
Right. They talk about mobile first indexing. I say customers first indexing, right? Yeah. The craft is creating a website that is consumable by human beings,
right,
and indexable by robots.
Which is getting easier because robots are getting
smarter,
which is also sort of terrifying, but that's just where we're at. Well,
it makes for better content though, because now we can use syntax, we can use semantics, semantic keywords and stuff like that. And now Google understands it's one of the same. So now I don't have to sit there and try to create little, keyword planting and make sure my density is all there without it, and really just repeat myself over and over versus making it human consumption rich. Right?
I love that. Yeah, it's so true. I feel like we could talk about this all day and overwhelm everybody with all of the things. But I think there's a lot of really good action steps in here. So if you could just kind of distill as we wrap this up, like if you were only going to do 3 things right now, what 3 things would you start with? And then maybe a bonus step for the overachievers.
I'm going to give you 2.
Okay, perfect. Even better.
Because the first one is a big lift.
Okay.
And it is the most important lift. Look at your website as if you know nothing about your organization. And ask yourself at every turn, would I click on what I needed to be clicked to be profitable? That is a big lift. So there are people who spend 6 months just in that with their website. Okay. So if you don't do it in one sitting, don't get discouraged. Just keep working at it and do one section at a time. Mm-hmm. Start with your homepage and identify whether you have described the pain in which the visitor is looking to solve, because you're going to assume they either have the pain and they need your service, or they're looking for their philanthropic need to serve that pain. So those are your 2, right? And then make sure that journey is consistent through that homepage to either click on more information or make an action by the end, by some point in that homepage.
So good.
Whether it be, reaching out to volunteer, donating, signing up for an event, whatever that looks like. Okay. And then go into each of the sections of your website and do the same exact thing. Mm. Your overachievers are now going to make sure that the journey is complete. Yes. So regardless of where I land on the website, I always find my way back to the same actions. Mm. Internal links we talked about.
Yep.
Blogs, and making sure that we can get the blogs back into the main site. All of those things.
And then would you also add to that, making sure that whatever email, maybe that's a good time to review any of your email automations that are going out as well, to make sure that loop is circled.
Oh, you test all of your call to actions, because sometimes the donate button needs to check. Shoot, I was just on my website this morning and I found out that one of our scheduling buttons went to a Calendly, which was fine, but the Calendly just said 30-minute meeting.
Right.
Oops, somebody missed something somewhere, right? And we have a very large website, so it's easy to miss those things, and so the larger your organization, the more this has to be looked at. Yep. So, doing those quarterly checks to make sure that links haven't gotten broken. Maybe somebody overlooked internal link that page moved and now that internal link doesn't work anymore. Those types of things. Getting a webmaster, even I have found, for nonprofits works better than trying to get a volunteer to make sure it's all working right. Because now you have a professional who can do it much faster. Even though you're going to spend a little bit of money, you're going to save time. And I'm telling you right now, there is one thing that nonprofits have less of than money: time.
Yeah.
Time and talent.
Yes. But also things just change. Like sometimes things just change in your business. And so the things that you had set up, even if they work correctly, are not your priorities anymore. And they just need to be updated.
Right. I've gone on to nonprofits, organizations that have events that happened 3 years ago still on their website. What does that say to the visitor?
Yep.
Oh, you guys must not be having a lot going on.
Yep.
Right. So yeah. Your first step is to go through your website and make sure that it is what you can test it with other people. You don't necessarily have to. Maybe you could give it to somebody who's never seen the website. Yeah. Give it to a friend who has never really shown interest in what you do, but you're going to ask them a favor. Hey, can you go through this website and tell me what you think? Mm-hmm. That type of thing. Yep. And then make sure that it all works. Yep. That's your bonus for sure.
Okay. I love it. Well, this has been amazing. Buzz, if people want to find out more about you, check out your book. Do you have a dog back there?
That is my little hound over there. Yeah.
Just a blanket. Sorry for those of you listening. Head on over to YouTube and you can see the puppy.
It's a little basset, 13-year-old basset hound. He's having a dream right now. I think he's running.
Goodness. So sweet. I just locked mine upstairs with my husband because otherwise she'll bark at all of the delivery guys while
gotcha. Yeah.
I should say. But if people want to know more about your book and get in touch with you and learn more about all the amazing things that you do, how do they do that?
They're really just one place. That whole hub thing I talked about. Yeah. So go to buzzworthy.biz, BUZZWORTHY.biz. The book is right there at the top. If you want to check that out, it's on Amazon. We got ebooks and paperback, no audiobooks yet. It's a short book, by the way, just so you know. I don't waste people's time.
Love it.
It's to the point. It does have a lot of do-it-yourself pointers, as Sammy pointed out. It's thick with tactics that will get you that closer and closer to those 26% markers and make things happen.
The one last thing I want to say that I love about the 26% piece is that it really gives you that benchmark to celebrate. Because I think we don't celebrate when we're doing these things. It's hard work. We know it's hard work. We know you can do it, but it gives you like something to really take into consideration and get excited about. We hit that 26% benchmark. Let's celebrate. And then keep doing the work.
Well, then let me part with this. The rule of 26 is a compounding effect. So you're really only doing 78% increases total, right? And you're getting 100% return. Mm. But every time you hit that, you're getting a 26% increase in whatever you're trying to get. So if traffic's 26% and your conversion rate stays the same, guess what? You're getting 26% more volunteers or more donations. Yeah. And then the second one, you're up to 52% more. And then that third one just gets you all the way to 100, right? That's so awesome. you get the results at every piece too, not just the celebration of, hey, this little KPI here looks really good on my report. The president of the association really likes me now because I got this 26% KPI, right? No, we actually have an increase in our donations and our volunteerism because we increased our traffic by 26%.
Yeah, no, that's so good. All of these links and more resources will be available at thefirstclick.net/podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Sammy, for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you to Buzz for joining us on this episode. I loved this conversation. We were so aligned on so many things. There are some great episodes around storytelling and branding that I will share in the show notes so that you can take some of the things that he said and put some action behind them. Please make sure you subscribe wherever you listen and make sure you head on over to thefirstclick.net/YouTube to watch the video of this episode, if that's how you like to consume your media. But we are out there wherever you listen to podcasts. And I thank you so much for starting 2022 off strong with me. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next one.